Hi, it's Malcolm from Aquaspray. I've had an Instagram subscriber tell me to do a video on the strip down of the Kranzle Starlet 3 gun. So why not? Let's have a go. Now this is the very first time that I've done this, so we shall see. So I really should get a electric screwdriver or something, because my wrist aches. So what I would suggest is take all the screws out, keep them to one side, because it's just easier to put that on there without the screws hitting inside. So that's that done. This is the valve you've got. There'll be nothing in here. It's possible that it might leak. Excuse me for hitting the camera. It's possible that it might leak from here if the Loctite wears off, which would literally just be a spanner, unscrew it, re-Loctite it, and then put it back on. Can't see that being a major problem. The main thing is the valve, so we need to have a look what the valve's like. I can see a little bit of a, gonna need to keep that. That fits on top of that valve pin. I'm not actually sure how that went on, but let's see if I can put it back on. It's pretty straightforward. If you lift it off, it'll just pop off. What you have to do is literally just put the indent on it, hold it with your thumb until when you push it, it just clicks and it's in place. So if you want it off, like that. So I can see a nut here. I'm not quite sure what that is just yet, but there'll be a pin, a spring and a ball bearing. First things to do is take this off first. No idea what spanner that is. So there you go, good guess. 19mm. Oh, it's tight. So they've Loctited that like mad. This is obviously a brand new one, so if it's been used it might not be as tight. So I can see that the O-ring seems to be trapped in there as well, which won't help how tight it feels. There you go, I think it's off. So you can see the Loctite that they've used. There's a spring, ball bearing. See if that'll roll away in there. And inside you have a seat, and that seat looks the same one as the outlet for the actual pressure washer itself. Now usually I wouldn't strip anything else down. I would stop here, because chances are there's just a little bit of grit between the ball and that seat, like what I've just thrown in there. So you've just got to make sure that that's completely clear and clean. Put the ball back in, the spring back in, and then screw this back on. And once you've put this little spacer unit back on, put it back together, chances are that will work. But I'm just going to see what it's like for the rest of it. So I'm going to have to use a pin, pull that out, take the trigger off, and then unscrew this and see what's behind there. So I shall do that now. I'm driving the little pin that holds that in place. I'll just put it in there for now. We need to get that off. Find out what size that is. It is silly size. So what's that? 11. Oh, not the camera again. 11 mil. See how easy this comes off. I feel like I'm going to break that. So, tip number 1, use the ring side of a spanner or a socket. So unscrew that brass out of there. And then you have a pin that'll pop out. So remember, the fat side of that pin will be towards the ball and spring. You'll probably tell that with the little indent for the ball and the rounded bit for the trigger to push against it. So there is an O-ring here that just sits in that groove on the top, and that'll be held in place like that. Apart from that, I don't think there's anything in here. No, that's just a brass piece of turned brass. So the only other thing in here is this seat. Now there's a seat in there held in with a little horseshoe clip if you want. That's gonna be the hardest thing to get out. But behind that silver seat will be an O-ring. So this is all just brass here now. This is the actual housing itself. To get this silver seat out, because there is an O-ring behind there, so if the ball is perfectly seated in the middle but the O-ring around the outside is leaking or broken, it will still pass water through and out. Because I've never had to do one of these, but you'd see the little spring clip down the back end and line it up with a hole so that you can use sort of a screwdriver just to prise it away for now. Pick. Now you're going to butcher this to get it out, but then if it's leaking through the trigger, then you're going to need to do it anyway, so it's going to need to be replaced. So I butchered that spring clip. That should not be that shape. It should be pretty much round. So that's the seat that the ball sits on to make the seal. And behind that seat there is an O-ring. And carefully get it out. So if that O-ring is damaged in any way, then it can't seat. So if the O-ring is damaged in any way, that is the clip over the top when it's a good, obviously. So the ball will seat on that seat and the O-ring will keep everything in place, stop water coming out. But if the O-ring is burst or split and the ball or the water can pass through and then slowly leak out of the gun. So what you would need to do is you need to replace that kit. And I'd probably get a ball and spring as well. So this is very similar, if not identical, to the outlet of the 7122 on the front. Apart from that, there's nothing else in there. There's a 14mm Allen key that you'll be able to unscrew to get an O-ring in here. And I've never had to replace that O-ring on any of the Kranzle guns. So that's quite rare that that would happen. But you can put a spanner on there, 14mm Allen key in the front, and unscrew it. There's nothing else in this at all, that's just how it is. So putting things back, obviously I'm going to have a problem because I haven't got one of these spring clips on me. Or have I? I might have actually. Oh, well, I'm going to have to go get one. So I've got one here. There's a seat. I'm not sure whether it's the correct size seat, this one. So yeah, this one's a little bit too big for that. Well, bollocks. So a little spring clip is supposed to look like that, not smashed up like this. And certainly with this, the amount of scratching on there, I would be changing that, which you would do anyway if you did that. But I haven't got one of these seats with me because I'm at home at the moment. So I'm just going to put this one back in. So the idea is to just put the O-ring in and seat it all the way down the bottom. Make sure that seat is facing up, and then we can put this in. So it's a little bit of a fiddle, but it might be better with a little flat bladed screwdriver, just to push that down to the bottom. And then make sure it's all seated properly. So don't forget, we've got to put this O-ring back in. And again, you would be changing that if you saw any wear on it. That lock back in. Use the ring. Just give that a quick nip. And push that pretty much all the way through, because the ball bearing needs to go on there. Make sure that that can seat into it. Spring. Closing cap. I don't think it needs Loctite with, certainly with just the O-ring will do it fine. Nip that up. So I'm going to put the trigger in. instead of dropping it onto our bench. Let's try again. Trigger, push the pin in, it's all flush. And then we've got this little disc that we should be able to just push in there. Beautiful. And then the only thing to do now is to put this back on and screw it in. So while I'm putting this back together, just throw a like if it helped you. If you want to know anything more, or you want to see anything in depth, or if I find a better way of doing this, I will repost one, but leave a comment for me. And I'll get back to you or redo the video if I find a better way of doing it, or something that helps putting these little spring clips in, or taking them out easier. I'll let you know. But really speaking, the only thing that I would be doing is that O-ring and the seat should last for ages. So I'm gonna feeling it'll only be a little bit of crap in the ball, between the ball and the seat. So once you've stripped it down, taken the ball out, cleaned it and put it back together, I reckon you'll be up and running without having to do anything else, unless it's leaking out of where this trigger is, where that little disc is. That's it, done. Back to normal.